Welcome, beautiful souls, to The Matchmaker with Patricia Underwood. I'm so thrilled to have each and every one of you joining me today for this special live stream. Today's topic is a truly fascinating one as we dive into the world of relationships and love. We'll be exploring the insights and wisdom from the incredible book, Getting to I Do, written by the renowned Dr. Patricia Allen. Dr. Patricia Allen's book is a treasure trove of knowledge, guiding us through the journey of finding and nurturing fulfilling relationships. Her profound insights have touched the lives of countless individuals, helping them navigate the complexities of dating, love, and commitment. Whether you're single, in a relationship, or simply seeking to deepen your understanding of love, you're in for a treat today. Together, we'll explore the key principles shared by Dr. Patricia Allen and discuss how they can shape your paths to finding true connection and lasting love. Feel free to engage with me in the chat, ask questions, share your thoughts, and let me know where you're tuning in from. This is a safe space to discuss matters of the heart openly and respectfully. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's embark on this beautiful journey together. Together, we'll discover how you can all get closer to I do and create loving relationships that stand the test of time. Thank you for being here with me, dear viewers and subscribers. Let's make this live stream an unforgettable experience. Now let's dive into the pages of Getting to I Do and explore the transformative power of love. Okay, so now we are on chapter 15. Chapter 15, How to Have Sex and Make It Great. We have just come out of an era of instant gratification, the 80s, and most of us are now realizing, perhaps initiated by the AIDS crisis, that real lovemaking is more satisfying than indiscriminate sex. To have a meaningful and lasting relationship, we must go from shallow, dangerous, polygamous sex games into satisfying monogamous lovemaking. How do you get satisfying lovemaking? By having good chemistry together, by sharing a compatible lifestyle, and by communicating all of this to each other verbally. And finally, by agreeing to a commitment of monogamy, continuity, and longevity. If one or both of you is interested only in passionate sex without a committed relationship, then you both need to be aware of this. That way, you can agree that what you are about to embark on is not intended to be a committed, marriage bound relationship. No matter what your individual goals are, you must discuss them before sex, or one of you may be hurt. If you can speak the truth to one another, sex then becomes making love, a time of intimacy, trust, and caring, and the pitfalls of shallow, anonymous gratification are avoided. Verbal communication lays the groundwork for free and erotic lovemaking in which each person knows the other is a real human and not a projection of his or her fantasy. If you want the best sex, lovemaking experience, first deal with these questions. 1. Why do I want sexual intimacy with this person? 2. Will this encounter make me feel desirable? 3. What is the long term goal for this encounter? 4. Am I seeking vengeance against men? 5. Do I like this person or am I just using him? 6. Is the drink, pill, snort, having sex, or am I? Who's on top? Is it in nature alone that anatomy is destiny? Because nature requires that a male sperm chase the female egg, which allows only one sperm to enter after a long, hard fight against the odds. But in human beings, there is a choice. The only requirement for a successful sexual union is that the two people be of opposite energy no matter what their gender. One person must be the passionate, active, masculine pursuer, and the other the affectionate, receptive, feminine one who is pursued. So, although each person in a relationship is unique in his or her sexual needs, each must know his or her preference and priorities. If you and your man are too similar in style, you will have problems. For example, if you are both the passionate, active, masculine pursuer, you will certainly, like Leslie and Mark, get it on ASAP. But you may not become well enough acquainted before sex to know if you have chosen a compatible life partner. If you are both affectionate, passive, and receptive, little action will take place. Each person will wait for the other to make the approach. But choosing your primary role does not mean that is a lifetime commitment. Later, when you are a committed couple, you can add variety for spice. You may go from male giving to female receiving. This is fine too, as long as you negotiate these changes with your partner. The two things to decide before you have sex are whether you are the male or female energy, and whether sex only is what you want or making love is your goal. If you are interested in making love and not just having casual sex, you must first find out if your partner wants the same. Sex without love. If you have chosen to be the feminine receiving energy, you must, for safety's sake, be in control of who makes love to you so you can feel safe and open. It is the receiver who has the veto or no right, which is where all the sexual power resides. Sperm is cheap, eggs are precious. The feminine receiver must be cherished in order for great sex to occur. Although most masculine energy based men want sexual release of tension through ejaculation, most feminine energy based women do not want sex unless it fulfills some emotional need. When a woman allows herself or is forced to become sexual without love, her self esteem drops, and she helplessly believes she is not lovable or desirable to good men. With little self esteem, she often compulsively seeks validation through more promiscuous sexual contacts, believing that giving good sex will help her keep her man. It doesn't. Remember Leslie and Mark? When Mark withheld sexual contact, Leslie found herself sexualizing food. It became her love object. Mark, on the other hand, could use the bodies of women as useful objects when he needed strokes. The old saying goes, men give love to get sex. Women give sex to keep this love. Of course, there are men who are feminine who give sex to get and keep love, and there are women who are masculine who give love to get sex. Which are you? The two kinds of sexuality, I call one kind of sexuality masculine, staircase sex, and the other feminine, wheel sex. Feminine will sex is preferred by feminine women or men who tend to be relationship oriented. They are not in it basically for the physical gratification. The feminine person needs sensitive, emotional support around the sexual act. Her sexuality is more like a wheel in which every action in the relationship impacts on her sexual experience. The person who is the female sexual energy will be greatly affected by emotional exchanges between the two people during the day. The tone of his voice during a phone conversation, whether he was late and why, the look on his face, whether he seemed bored. Okay, sorry. The look on his face, whether he seemed bored at dinner in the restaurant and eager to run home for sex. All the things that happen between the two people before getting into bed affect the way the feminine man or woman responds to his or her partner sexually. But the masculine sex drive is little affected by extraneous happenings during the day. If he basically feels respected in the relationship, little about the day gets in the way of his sex drive. It moves straight ahead, directed toward orgasm and release. Patrice, a floral designer, was a very romantic and feminine woman who was in a committed relationship with Nick. a charismatic and dynamic businessman who, in the first 3 months of their relationship, had been wonderfully romantic, prompt for dates, always remembering to call if he was going to be late, bringing surprise gifts, flowers, and cute cards. He was always very affectionate. But by the fourth month, Patrice noticed a laxness creeping into their romance. Nick was often late and seldom bothered to call to let her know of his change in plans. Patrice told Nick that this behavior was unsettling to her, but each time she spoke to him, he'd shrug off her words. He would reply, "Okay, but I'm here now, so let's drop in." Soon the little gifts and flowers became less frequent until they stopped entirely except on her birthday or special holidays. Then he began to criticize small things that Patrice did. Still, regardless of how the day went between them, Nick wanted to make love each time they saw each other. But Patrice was very much influenced by the little things and soon became unresponsive to the sexual act with him. She began to feel more like an object of his sexual release than the cherished woman in his life. These feelings were not communicated between them, and as a result, Patrice became depressed over the situation. When Patrice told me of her problem at one of my seminars, my advice was that she pick a quiet, peaceful time and ask Nick if he would listen to some feelings she had been holding in that were troubling her. If he said yes, I advised her to then tell him that she loved those little things he used to do, his flowers, warm phone calls, those small romantic gestures that made her feel sexually responsive. She must also tell him about the things he did that closed her up to sex with him: his tardiness, careless words of criticism, lack of compliments or appreciation, his breezy affection without involvement. She was to tell him that one negative thing, which might seem like nothing to him, could prevent her from responding totally. I suggested she present these things not as a command, but rather as a sharing of her feelings. Patrice did share with Nick her need and desire for romance before turning on to him. Nick was very responsive and felt foolish and regretful that he had been so careless and unaware. Having penetrating, controlling, passionate intercourse is very male in energy. Making total love physically, mentally, and emotionally is very feminine and affection based. Feminine, receptive women and men are horny for lovemaking and not just intercourse. That is, they don't initiate intercourse, but rather initiate affection. And when they receive affectionate foreplay during the day and in bed, they turn on and give back passionate intercourse. Slam bam, thank you, ma'am, is for masculine people, whether male or female. Slow and easy is for feminine people, whether female or male. Will sex fulfills a feminine woman or man's need to be cherished in foreplay. It involves affection, touching, feeling, ambling its way to intercourse, all flowing together as part of a continuum. When a man understands the concept of will sex and practices it, he will not only help his receptive woman feel cherished, but he will get greater pleasure because he is giving greater pleasure to his receptive woman. Lori, a successful real estate broker, was the girlfriend of Ben. Oops, sorry, was the girlfriend of Ben, the owner of a restaurant and a typical big eye gamesman. Ben would make love to Lori with well-determined perfunctory touches, grabs, and kisses in supposedly erotic zones for a woman. For Ben, this kind of sex was fine. It was the way he had always done it. He was well-meaning, but clearly he had no clue as to how to make love to a woman and satisfy her. So their loving resulted in his orgasm, but not hers, leaving her silent, frustrated, and angry. Of course, Lori, who was no fool, knew what good sex could be like with the right man. She loved Ben and believed he loved her too, but the relationship was beginning to strain. So how was she to convey her desire to re-script their pattern of lovemaking without humiliating him or compromising her role in a relationship as a feminine woman? Lori needed to communicate with Ben in a way that he could hear and learn from. She chose to ask him if she could talk to him at his convenience about their sexual relationship. Ben agreed nervously, fearing her criticisms. He knew she was not sexually satisfied, but he also knew he didn't know a better way. He had read books about making love to a woman and followed formulas he had read, but they didn't work with Lori. Ben, I know you love me and are trying to please me, and I appreciate you for it. However, I like certain things to happen that really turn me on. Are you willing to learn what they are? Ben was relieved that she was going to tell him what pleased her instead of telling him what he had done wrong. They crawled into bed and under the covers like kids playing. She slowly showed him how she liked to be touched and where by guiding his hands. She whispered the things she liked to happen to her body in his ear until he could not stop from making love to her on the spot. This time it was different because she could maneuver his hands and body with hers because he wanted her to. She could verbalize her desires because he had told her that she could. She was not a demanding mother with a bad boy. She was a woman whose man wanted her to teach him how to be her lover. And he was still the respected man and she the cherished woman. Began making love to Lori leisurely and with attention to find her special erotic little pleasure zones. For the first time in their relationship, Lori began to respond voluptuously to her man, and Ben's reward was not only his awareness of the great orgasm and immense pleasure he was giving his woman, but his own deeper orgasm, much better in every way than the ones he previously had with his mechanical, awkward, and unsatisfying gestures toward this woman he truly loved and wanted to please. For Jane and George, who were both musicians in their early 20s, the problem was George's sexual inhibitions and inexperience with women. Jane, a strong, dynamic, masculine energy woman, loved her George's gentle touches. She enjoyed his smoothing her hair, gliding his hands over her skin, giving secret kisses, and making love tenderly. But she also wanted more passionate sex. Since they had just committed to one another, their sexual relationship was new, and the truth was that George was not fulfilling her needs. He did not spontaneously and lustfully enjoy himself or her body. She knew he had passion within because it would break out periodically while making love, but it would just as quickly go underground. Jane wanted to make the relationship work, but she wanted good sex too. She feared George would close down completely if she talked negatively about her problem. She came to see me and I suggested she use direct physical means to loosen up George's natural passion. It would be up to her to lead him to the kind of sexuality she wanted, since she was the masculine pursuer. Jane invited George to her place for dinner and met him at the door in his sensuous silk lounging gown, not a threatening erotic teddy. All the romantic maneuvers were in place: dim lights, candles, soft music, a glass of wine, a light meal, a request to slow dance, her undressing him, a bath together with lots of sudsy touching, followed by a fabulous and erotic massage. As she rubbed him, Jane talked about some of her sexual fantasies. She pursued him sensuously until he was so turned on he could not help but be passionate with her. Then later in bed, he was so turned on by turning her on, they had the first of many wonderful sexual experiences in which both were fulfilled. It is important to let your masculine man know how wonderful it feels to you when he plays the will of your senses: touching, tasting, smelling, seeing, and hearing on the way to intercourse and orgasm. This will give you greater pleasure because you will feel cherished as a human being and not an object to be used. Another way your man can bring you pleasure and get wonderful results is by talking affectionately to you. I call it sweet talk. And feminine energy sex partners love sweet talk because they fall in love through their ears, while male energized men and women fall in love through their eyes. The way you talk to your man is of utmost importance. Patrice talked politely and not critically to Nick about his mistakes. Criticizing a masculine man can cause him so much inner pain that he cannot hear what you are saying and will often react defensively or run away. Feminine Lori got verbal permission to teach masculine Ben how she likes sex. She also was gentle about Ben's inner feminine feelings, not critical like an authority figure mom. If you are the feminine energy who chooses to be cherished, you need to protect your sexual feelings, not his. Doing nothing when sex is not bringing you pleasure means it will go on indefinitely. It will cause not only feelings of being taken for granted, but resentment, frustration, and anger, which can be damaging to your relationship. You will best do this just as Patricia and Lori did by asking permission to share your feelings. If he won't talk, leave him. It means he is too selfish to be with. If he listens, speak I feel statements, not you are wrong statements. Especially tell him what you don't want, i.e., uncommitted sex, polygamy, rough sex, and slam bam, thank you, ma'am sex. However, speak to him like a polite human being, not an emotional, judgmental hysteric. He cannot hear or learn from you when you act irrationally. Even if out of love for you, he accepts you're doing it this way. Remember, most masculine men will not change unless required to do so. A feminine person, as a feminine person, you must communicate your negative feelings about a sexual relationship that is void of romantic spice. The past revisited, sex problems. We all carry baggage from our past into our sexual relationships. Possibly we have been miseducated, inhibited by religious training, abandoned, or most often still plagued with painful memories of rejection by a previous lover. All of these things tend to plant false ideas in our minds, which damage us sexually and make us wary of future encounters. This is a natural but self defeating and destructive process because when we bring ignorance, hurts, and disappointments into the next man's bed, it can be subvert it can subvert our natural healthy sexuality. We must work hard to free ourselves of these ghosts in the bedroom and begin to make sexual decisions that are own that are our own and not someone else's. Unless we change our false beliefs, the damage will show up in our new relationships even before we attempt to be sexual. Following are 7 common faulty premises that women hold and some new ways to think and act in order to diffuse these issues and help your new relationship off to a good start. Faulty premise 1: if I give a man sex, he will give me back a commitment. Wrong. Masculine men do not give back a commitment for free sex. Masculine men know that there are no free lunches, and what appears to be free sex usually has strings attached. The strings being a woman who says, marry me, or I'm pregnant, or I feel used. So smart taker men get the sex free and then run away without paying, leaving a woman bonded and in pain. Masculine men give commitments when they are required to by women who don't need a man but prefer one in order to add to their already functioning lives. Don't give back sex until you negotiate the give back commitment from him. Buyer beware. By the way, if you are a woman who chooses to be the masculine energy, please practice sexual integrity with the man you pursue sexually. Sensitive, feminine, energy based men do give back sex and commitment to strong, masculine women who pursue them by giving them sex, money, and status. Most men, whether feminine or masculine, logically believe in their ability to think clearly. So they risk a great deal when they find they have been used as sex machines by unscrupulous women. This thoroughly undermines their feelings of adequacy. Feminine women who become aware of their being abused feel undesirable and unlovable and often resort to binging on food, drink, drugs, or casual sex to mask their pain. Faulty premise number 2: sexual virtue is passe. Wrong. Men don't fall in love with your vagina no matter how great a sex partner you are. They may fall into sex addiction, but they will not fall in love, which by definition must be with the total you, mind, body, and spirit. Historically, Parents, churches, and culture have attempted to teach virtue, but with the advent of the birth control pill, sexual revolution, and the women's movement, these precepts seemed outdated. The result was that society rebelled against virtue and began to indulge in spontaneous casual sex, only to rue the day after. I believe that virtue is synonymous with personal integrity, with how honest we are to ourselves. A man or woman who honestly says, I am not interested in a committed relationship, I only want some fun, has, to my way of thinking, integrity but not spiritual virtue. The man or a woman who acts seductively and suggests the possibility of a committed relationship in order to get sex lacks integrity and virtue as well. These people are dangerous. They sexually use gentle women or men who once burned, may then themselves become cynical users of others. Your intuition will tell you who the users are. Don't ignore that little voice inside of you that says, something is wrong here. I don't feel right. My advice is either get a commitment or get away. Faulty premise number 3. Casual sex is a good way to get to know someone. Wrong. Casual sex is a way to lower the anxiety of anticipation. The anticipation of romance, union, and completion can be so painful that getting it over with becomes more important than intimacy, slowly and carefully built. Is sex the bloom or the roots of a relationship? I believe that sex is the bloom, not the roots. The roots must be planted deep into compatibility, communication, and friendship. When the relationship grows out of sex, it can become an addiction between incompatible, uncommunicative, unfriendly people who need the sex hit, not the intimacy. But when sex is the bloom and the roots are grounded in true human erotic love, it can last through the peaks and valleys of life. Faulty premise number 4. All I need to do is have medically safe sex. It is true that medically safe sex is the beginning of security, but it is not enough. In a relationship, sensitive women and men also need emotionally safe sex, grounded in their being, known for who they are, and heard for what they want. It is not uncommon for women who try to resist casual sex to find themselves either seduced, I'll give you a commitment someday, but not today, or intimidated. You're not being fair to me, or you're lucky to have me, by someone trying to talk them into sex. Being hostage to a controlling person can be as dangerous as having unsafe sex. The time and energy it takes to withdraw and heal from a bad deal can be just as destructive as many sexually transmitted diseases. AIDS can kill the body, but so can depression. Taking an AIDS test and taking time to know the other person and have him or her know you work best together for safety. Faulty premise number 5. I can fix my partner's sex problems. Sex problems are, along with financial problems, one of the most obvious symptoms of inner turmoil. It is grandiose and presumptuous to assume that you can fix someone's sex problems. You can work with a partner or a client if you are a therapist, but you cannot fix her or his problems. Each of us must identify our problems and commit to rehabilitation. Although we can draw up upon the aids of therapy and self-help books for groups, but no one can be fixed from outside. It is an inside job. Dysfunctional people often like to believe their sex problems can be fixed from the outside. Needy people often like to be needed. These two people meet: the fixer, one who believes that he or she can teach the other how to be functional, and the one who needs to be fixed, and the game is on. If you want to accept a sexually dysfunctional person as is, do it, but don't hope for a change. If you do not want to commit to a dysfunctional person, reject him or her as soon as possible, mercifully. Don't tolerate dysfunction, or you will become dysfunctional yourself. Grandiose fixers and tyrannical victims somehow deserve each other. Choose carefully. If you want to be a sex therapist, get a license. If you want a good marriage, get a good lover. We live too long to be sexually frustrated and unfulfilled. Faulty premise 6. Once I am in a committed relationship, I don't have to continue my sexual courtship style. Wrong! When one person switches sexual courtship styles without negotiation in mid relationship, it can be very threatening to the other person. Most women are turned off when their aggressive, masculine style man suddenly turns passive in bed. But it is not only women who turn off. Sexual aversion and impotence are becoming major problems for men these days. They are turning off sexually to narcissistic women who want to be respected for their ideas and also cherished for their feelings. Men who turn off don't want to be a drone to a queen bee, so they sexually shut down as their way to not cherish her with sexual pleasure. Some men like to lead and some men don't. With women's rights being promoted, men's rights to determine whom they want or don't want sex with are being confronted. Faulty premise 7. Masculine men like women who share sexual initiating responsibilities equally. Wrong! Most masculine men do not like sexual initiating responsibilities to be shared. They want to be the sexual aggressors, and they want their feminine women to respond and give back. Does that mean that if you are a feminine woman, you can't initiate sex when you're in the mood? It might, because becoming a couple means compromising some of your rights and freedoms as an individual for the benefit of the relationship. However, most healthy men and women will be able to share equitably in this sexual area if they can negotiate their preferences. The challenge for romantic partners is to compassionately and truthfully talk about sexual styles and be sensitively aware of the other's feelings. I suggest that if you are a feminine woman who wants to initiate sex with her committed partner, you say, Fred, sometimes I look at you and I just want to start making love right then. Would it turn you off if I approached you like that? Of course, narcissistic men and women who want their sexual desires respected and their sensitive feelings cherished cannot be negotiated with, because when their partner tries to initiate his or her own sexual wants, they feel challenged and the competition begins. These men and women intimidate and or seduce to get their own way and accuse their partners of destroying the relationship with their negativity, saying no, and selfishness. Too often, sensitive, sensuous, sexual men and women who don't like to fight will shut down and ignore their own sexual needs in deference to the narcissistic partner, hoping things will change equitably. They never do. A technique for undoing sexual damage. Sexuality is the bonding element in a relationship. Your last sensual sexual experience forms the basis of pleasure for your next experience. When sexual memories of the last encounter are good, it forms the baseline foundation for the next encounter. When negative memories are formed, especially for men, sexual aversion or stalemate follows and they fall out of love. Robin, an attractive cosmetologist, spoke to me after a seminar about her boyfriend, John, a handsome construction worker a few years older than she, with whom she was building a solid, loving relationship. Their only problem, she told me, was their sex life, which had inexplicably taken a turn for the worse. John was working long, hard hours on a housing project, and when he came over to see her in the evenings, he would make perfunctory love to her, totally unlike the great sex they had before. When Robin tried to bring up her sexual dissatisfaction, John would counter with, Look, Robin, I'm working like a crazy man. I'm tired, I'm stressed out. I've got problems with this job. What do you expect? I'm exhausted. Robin asked me what to do, and I suggested my technique of sensate focusing. I have found that this helps couples to develop the art of making love. Sensate focusing exercises. Number one, set aside at least 2 hours when no interruptions will occur, either at home or at a hotel, in a bathtub or hot tub or jacuzzi that can hold two people. Number two, lock doors, disconnect phones and beepers. Just goes to show how long ago this book was written. Number three, don't talk at all during these 2 hours. Only body language can be used. Talk is a left lobe intellectual activity. Making love is a right lobe nonverbal activity. Number four, the male energy person will bring finger foods for each to feed the other, a tape or record or sensuous music without vocals, candles and incense, writing paper and pens or pencils, powder or oil. Instructions: feed, wash, dry, oil, powder, massage each other, and have sex or don't, depending on male desire, female availability, and sleep and rest. Don't talk from the beginning of the encounter until the end. Use candles, turn off all electric lights, music, and incense. Signal pleasure and discomfort physically, but not verbally. After the bath and massage, write a letter to the other about the experience. Exchange the letters and write a response back. Exchange a response and then talk. This exercise will enhance your pleasure or intensify your painful fear of intimacy. If this fear cannot be alleviated in a few bathing sessions, seek help from therapy. Make certain the therapist is certified as a sex therapist. This nonverbal sensuous focusing exercise is designed to help bodies rebond chemically. Bodies forget each other and debond if neglected. Workaholics and distracted men and women forget to taste, touch, smell, see, and hear each other often enough to remember the pleasure. Robin told John about this exercise, and although at first he laughed nervously at the idea of contrived sex, he finally gave in, and after one romantic evening in which Robin brought the candles, munchies, music, and massage oil and kept silent in their bath together, he never balked again. John liked the relaxation in a hot bath for his tired body, and he also liked not having to talk. Robin liked the slow washing, drying, and massaging. Robin and John found a new way to make love that fulfilled both their needs, and in fact, after that, John became the initiator of these special times together, and their sex life resumed full blast. This exercise may seem clumsy at first, contrived or artificial, until you feel the pleasure. Hopefully, you will enjoy the experience so much you will want to do it for yourselves, not just because it is a helpful technique. Male sexual dysfunction. The exercise I just suggested is also good to use if your man has a problem with premature ejaculation or impotence. Male sexual dysfunction, pardon me one moment. Male sexual dysfunction may have a physical, psychological base. Male sexual dysfunction may have a physical or psychological base. I shall deal only with the psychological issue here, since the medical is out of my field of competency as a marriage and family counselor. Seminal retention. Although some men can control their orgasm deliberately in order to extend their sexual activity longer, thus enjoying themselves and the pleasure they can give, others suffer from psychological dysfunctional seminal retention or the inability to release into orgasm. These are men who can achieve an erection and can give their partner pleasure, but cannot let go of themselves enough to achieve orgasm. Psychologists have suggested that this not uncommon problem is based on a fear of being vulnerable and committed. If your partner appears to be suffering from an inability to achieve an orgasm, you can greatly enhance your lovemaking by an attitude of acceptance of unconditional love. Criticizing, teasing, or demanding only deepens the fear and causes more problems. In order for a man who is to give her to perform well, he must be with a feminine woman who receives well and is not judgmental. Seminal retention can sometimes be a very loving technique by a man in order to maintain staying power. Staying power for lovemaking. The Chinese advise men to give 100 orgasms to a woman before releasing themselves. This ideal may not be realistic, but the intent is wonderful. Tantric yoga also stresses sensuality over sexual gratification. The mind, not the body, is the mind, not the body, is the seat of good sex. Using self-discipline and control to enhance sexual intimacy is what turns sex into lovemaking. Impotence. In working with single men in relationships, I have found that impotence is often a fear-based dysfunction. The modern, self-actualized woman could sometimes be a bit too much for a masculine right-handed man. One minute she is assertive, aggressive, the next she is passive. In the absence of female behavior that is logical or predictable, the man, like the Pavlovian dog, can eventually lose his potency on all levels. Depression in men often looks like passive aggressive behavior. He can do it if you wanted to, she says. In truth, he has shut down out of self preservation. He will sometimes check out the machinery with less threatening women and find his impotency is not with all women, only with a woman who frightens him. I advise women to pick their style of sexuality, either active assertive or passive receptive, and stay with it in order to avoid training their man to be impotent. But what if you want to change your sexual style? How do you do that without causing him to become impotent? The best way to avoid a bad sexual reaction in a man or a woman is to talk. But once again, the problem that evolved people have is that they speak from both sides of their brain. They talk about both their thoughts and their feelings, which results in confusion. So a woman must pick her style either masculine, i.e., I think, I want, my opinion is, please respect me and I will cherish you for doing it, or feminine, i.e., I feel good, confused, stifled, neglected, please cherish me and I will respect you for doing it. No matter what the sexual subject is, AIDS testing, birth control, dysfunctions, fantasies, speak from your side of the relationship. If you had chosen to be female, say, I would really enjoy having one of your massages. If you have chosen to be male, say, I think it would be fun to make love in the jacuzzi. That way, the other person can now hear you and know where you are coming from and respond either by saying, that sounds like fun to me if you are the feminine energy, or I can do that, honey, if you are the masculine. Premature ejaculation. Sometimes a man suffers from premature ejaculation when he is selfish and doesn't care about a woman's need to be made love to affectionately. I call this malady deficient affectionate lovemaking. But sometimes premature ejaculation on the part of the man can be traced directly to the actions of his woman. For example, when a woman is being hypercritical, i.e., don't touch me that way, don't mess my hair, or I hope you can hold off this time until I am satisfied, he will be too tense to enjoy lovemaking and will get to his orgasm as quickly as possible. A truly good sexual experience must be grounded for both the man and his woman in the relationship in trust, surrender, and lustfulness. My suggestion is if your man gets extremely excited and ejaculates fast, make love again for your pleasure. Creativity eliminates problems. There is no such thing as bad technique between loving humans. Bad technique is only having sex for sex sake. Female sexual dysfunctions. It is obvious to me that feminine, energized women need to be courted, pampered, nurtured, and given affection before they will fully open up. For this to happen, your masculine man must create and lead a sexual experience that is based on tenderness and love for your feelings. When you do not receive that kind of tenderness, it often results in female sexual dysfunction. And the result could be failure to lubricate or inability to achieve orgasm. I believe this is a woman's unconscious way of saying, I'm not going to make this easy and pleasurable. I'm going to stay in control in order to be ready to defend myself against your insensitivity rather than surrender my body to you. Without affectionate cherishing, men or women may go frigid or become unresponsive. No matter how technically proficient their partner is. Whichever energy you carry into your relationship, your willingness to accommodate your partner's needs must become a priority, or no sex may occur. And that is the end of chapter 15. I think that was a great chapter. I was kind of nervous about it because I don't really care to really discuss sex with people, because people tend to take the sex conversation too far to the left, and then it's like that's all they're focused on. But I think that was a great chapter on how to focus on intimacy and creating and establishing a committed relationship. I love the premises of, especially the first premise: do not use sex to manipulate yourself into or springboard yourself into a committed relationship. Do not use sex as a tool or a weapon or something to use as manipulation. Good sex starts with intimacy. How do you feel about the person? Are you having sex as in, this is the cherry on top? We've gotten to know each other and I'm really turned on by this person because I like who this person is and we're in a committed relationship. Or are you just having sex because it's sex? The virtue around holding off on having sex, or the mindset of society around casual sex and hooking up, makes you feel uncomfortable and prudish by desiring a committed relationship before having sex. So why are you having sex with someone? Why are you having sex with That's the question to ask. Why are you having sex? What is the purpose here? Are you having sex for sex sake? Are you having sex to fulfill a need? Are you having sex because you're toxic, you're dysfunctional, the psychological needs? What's going on? Why are you having sex? Are you having sex because you're really the chemistry between the two of you? There's intimacy growing. You're building something, and you're naturally in tune to this person's body and this person's mind. So you're naturally falling into that space of wanting to have sex with this person. So it's a true desire. Or are you having it because you're seeking a thrill, right? So figure out why you're having sex. And then have some boundaries. Ladies, if you're not in the mood to have sex, for all my feminine women who are watching this, like I had a call with a young lady earlier today, and she was telling me how her relationship dynamic has changed. They're good. The relationship is good, but sex is now an issue because she's not really in the mood. He's not turning her on. And so I had to express to her. I said, "What do you mean?" And she says, "Well, if we're laying in bed, he will just start to reach over and start touching and grabbing, and then he's just wanting to have sex." I said, "Okay, so what do you need in order to get there, to want to have sex, to be turned on?" She says, "I need him. He need him to be more romantic about it, right?" Now, if she was to go to a lot of these YouTube channels where all this conversation around this, you know, well, a man should get what a man wants because he's taking care of you. And it looks like, and it sounds like a woman's needs do not matter. Um, that's wrong. That is so false. I had to tell her, I said, listen, you need to communicate to him that you need romance, that you need him to turn you on. He can't just roll over one day and just expect sex. Feminine women do not respond that way. Masculine women, or women who are acting in their masculine energy, dysfunctional, toxic women, are operating in that way. They're a very, very young couple, by the way, very, very young. They're in their early 20s. So I told her, communicate to him that you need romance. She didn't know she could have this conversation, so I'm telling her, have the conversation. Talk to him in greater detail of what you like. Don't tell him what he's doing wrong. Just talk to him and tell him what you need and what you like. And if he's receptive to that, he will act upon that. Now, you might have to keep telling him several times, keep reminding him several times, because what happens is you're training him like Pavlov's dog. So don't think that by telling him one time, it's going to sink in, he's going to continue to do it. Nope, it doesn't happen that way. We're humans, right? You're going to have to train him like Pavlov trained his dogs. Pavlov's dogs. There's a psychological uh, um, experiment where Pavlov trained his dogs through a bell, ringing of a bell, that it's their meal is going to be there. So they start salivating, right? because they know that food was coming. Well, just by the ringing of the bell, there was salivation happening, even if there was no food present. The dogs responded to the bell and not the actual food. So you're going to have to train him just like that. Every time he is romantic, so if he's not meeting your romantic need, you don't engage in sex. But every time he meets your romantic need, you engage in sex joyfully, like joyfully, gleefully. You don't tell him, but you don't make him feel good. And I mean, you don't make him feel bad and say, see, if you've done this before and if you always do this. No, no, no. You just receptively accept. You just receptively and joyfully receive the fact that he is engaging in meeting your need through the romance. So once he engages in it, okay, every time he does that, you joyfully receive it and you have sex with him. So as time goes on, he's going to start getting it. It's going to start clicking. Oh, I'm going to need to do this. Now, if he gets frustrated, then he may not be the one for you. He just may not have it in him to do it. So it's either he just doesn't know and he just needs to be trained over time, or he doesn't care. And the only way that you can figure out is by standing on the focusing on having sex if he's meeting your needs in the romantic sense. Now I know men are going to hear this and be like, "Oh my gosh, that's manipulation." No, that is not. Training someone to meet your needs is not manipulation. That is par for the course in a relationship. No one's going to come in perfect and get everything right. You're going to have to educate someone on how to treat you, how to be with you. I always say this, you have to learn your partner. So if you have to learn your partner, then that means that they're teaching you something. They're teaching you how to be with them. They're teaching you how to exist with them. They're teaching you how to collaborate with them. They teach you how to be cooperative with, how to cooperate with them. The same goes for sex. So open up by having the conversation, and then open yourself up to the possibility that you might have to train and educate the person that you're with. So, all right, with that being said, if you've enjoyed the video, make sure you like the video and share it, right? Help the platform grow. I can do more content, give out more gems when I know that people are receptive to it, right? No one wants to sit here and talk and do all of this, and no one wants to hear it. So let me know that you want to hear it by sharing, by liking and sharing. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Truly appreciate you having here. Don't forget to click the subscribe button. So that would be all for today. I'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same place, where I'm reading from chapter 16, How to Keep a Sexual Relationship from Turning into an obsessive addiction. So until then, you all take care and enjoy the rest of your day.